There we have a song about the OLED projector. No, we had wanking on OLED projectors right now. Okay, maybe I'll tell you about Viennese factionism. We have a couple of minutes more left, and if you don't have any questions, then I'll tell you about this one. The problem nowadays with art, and I think you're not like from the art scene and stuff like that, but you might know it, that there's a problem with getting attention, there's a problem with getting the messages across, stuff like that, especially if you work in political art. In the 60s in Austria, there was a movement called Viennese actionism. In the 60s, it was quite, let's call it, easy to provoke, because in the 60s, especially in Austria, there were rather rigid, a rigid societal framework, let's call it, okay? So it was quite easy, for example, for a guy like the artist Günter Bruss to walk on an open place in Vienna with a white suit and a stripe of blood on his suit, to walk out there, walk around for a couple of minutes, and he was arrested by the police. I mean, nowadays, if you walk around in a white suit with a bloodline on your suit, you might get a photo on Flickr or something like that. But you are not getting on the front page of a big newspaper, like, for example, the right-wing Kronenzeitung in Austria. Okay, so we thought a lot about what happened between the 60s and nowadays, that it's really hard to do the thing called actionism. What happened, okay? First of all, of course, the society changed, because in the 60s we had this, Michel Foucault would call it the disciplinary society. Disciplinary society means you come from, let's say, you're born, and then you go, then the parents, and the parents, they teach you. And then you go to the kindergarten and you're being taught there, and then you go to the school, and then you go to the military services, or you go to the university, you go to the workplace, and all those institutions are here to disciplinary institutions. The good part about that was that you actually could rebel against it, because, for example, you know that maybe yourself, if you're working and you say, okay, I go to the toilet now, and then I'll stay on the toilet 10 minutes longer. And my boss, fuck my boss, 10 minutes on the toilet, fine, why not? Okay. So there was always this dichotomy between, we, the workers, and the guys who basically we work for, okay? There was always this, we and them. And in the 60s, 70s, 80s, there was a slow change between the so-called disciplinary society and the so-called control society, as, for example, Deleuze calls it. The control society, nowadays, sometimes people call it neoliberal society. I would rather call it control society. The control society problem is that nowadays we are all our own bosses. And if I'm my own boss, and if I'm working for myself, so if the control and the power is inside of myself, then I won't stay on the toilet 10 minutes longer, because I'm stealing my own time. So, and we have many problems with flat hierarchies, There are big corporations with flat hierarchies. But still, flat hierarchies are hierarchies. I mean, is that a hierarchy and that not? I mean, there's a boss. The boss tells you what to do. And even in German, it's really interesting. Wenn du mit deinem Boss per Du bist, ist immer noch dein Boss. So there is no concept for that in English. But if you're a good pal of your boss, it's still the boss. So what's the difference? So the interesting part is it's getting more and more complicated to rebel against something, because the society, and especially the new forms of capitalism, have a really, really clever way to subsume rebellion. And that's one of the main reasons, for example, the art of the 60s doesn't work anymore nowadays. I mean, most of the stuff the Viennese actionists did are by far they painted with blood, and this and that. But if you turn on Jackass, most of the stuff on Jackass is far, far, far more explicit than what the Viennese actionists did in the 60s. but they somehow changed the art field and society somehow. Okay, so long intro. That's why we did a project called Viennese Factionism, turning the actionism to the factionism, and show you a couple of pictures. That's monochrome member Harald, and he's sitting there, and like in an Austrian wine tavern, and that's me on the lower right corner. And we're waiting there because we want to eat something. We are sitting there in this really rustic Austrian place, and we want to eat something. Okay, but what do we want to eat? We drink a little bit of wine, you know, and we had some good stuff from the Austrian kitchen, and you see it here. It's called auto blood sausage. So we're waiting there, and then we a little bit of blood, quarter of a liter about. It was a little messy stuff, you know, and then we spoiled a little bit of it, you know, and that's mine because. So and now our colleague Harald makes the blood sausage, okay, and the people look. And he fills it into the sausage, and he cooks a little bit of the sausage, and I'm eagerly awaiting. First of all, I have to tell you, of course, we paid for our own blood sausage, €5. And there it is. Tasted great. I mean, blood sausage. Who knows blood sausage? It's not really tasty for me, but it's not really tasty for me with my own blood. I don't know. Okay, and we ate it. And our chef was really proud that we ate it. I want to be part of a blood group, okay? Yeah, the problem, or not the problem, was that we said, okay, we do a performance that is by far worse than anything the Viennese Actionists did in the 60s. We eat our own blood in a blood sausage. And we'll do that, and we'll make big propaganda for it, and press releases, and blah, 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 blah. Actually, many, many people showed up. A couple of them puked. But we said, we'll not make it in any fucking newspaper in Austria. We won't do it. Especially, we won't get on the front cover of the Kronenzeitung. We didn't actually we proved that somehow things changed. It was an interesting experiment on how things are different and the same, but we are still working on the project, and maybe we'll do a couple of more projects that somehow relate to this strange thing called art system, art market, society and art, blah, 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 stuff like that. I mean, yeah, we tried. Maybe questions about this one here? I don't know but it's a long PowerPoint presentation, I don't know. Maybe this one. Maybe this one, okay, I'll show you this one too. Scrota contra vota. We had this thing a couple of projects ago, you know, like gender and stuff like that, and especially like in modern societies, most of the crap that is happening is actually produced by men, you know. Somehow, you can see it by the empirical means, you know, how many female and male politicians are there and stuff like that. So we thought we want to have a way, we want to have a project how men can articulate their political will, okay? So we said, okay, come to us, sit down on a flatbed scanner, and we scan your scrotum. For example, like this. Or this. Or this. Or this. Okay, just a couple of examples. And we collect the scrota, and then we'll email them to politicians. We actually did that a couple of years ago, and 2 weeks later, the Austrian government collapsed. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it worked. Maybe it's too monocausal. But you know, what can we do? A little bit about scrota against water. What's the next one? Mobutobe. Yeah. Excellent. People asking us about our projects. That's fine. I don't have to show the crap in the PowerPoint presentation. Yeah, we did a project last year. It was a big project called Experience the Experience. So Experience, we were invited to the States, to a couple of towns there, cities there, and we found it really interesting that there is this concept of experience in English language. Because experience is more than just Erfahrung. It's not really translatable to German experience, but there is experience everywhere. Disney experience, dining experience, the Bush experience. It's experiences, all kinds of experiences. And we thought, okay, we bring new experiences from Europe to the States, and we did a tour called Experience the Experience. And we, for example, did experience the experience of being buried alive. So we buried people alive for 15 minutes in a coffin. Or we did, for example, experience the experience of a magnetism party. And the magnetism party was, the theoretical background about this one was that there's this big talk about information overload and stuff like that. Most like conservative, pessimistic people, cultural conservativists, always talk about there's too much information and we can handle them and stuff like that. And so we somehow condensed this fear of information and of the information overload in this performance, and we asked people to bring their credit cards, hard drives, iPods, whatever, and we had a couple of really, really strong magnets. So the people could come, and then we would like wipe them. We had 2 iPods erased. And afterwards they had to exchange the hard drives. I'm so sorry about that one. Okay, but it was really nice because the situation itself was quite clear. We were sitting there on a table with a couple of magnets, and people were coming, handing us their technical devices and their cards, and then we were wiping them, and then they were going away. And the good part was that many of the people just started to discuss what's happening here. People from the street came in. What are you doing? You're wiping your iPod. You can't do that. That's like burning books and stuff like that. It's strange. Come on. So, and that's like, I think most of the monochrome projects somehow deal with this interaction, because like the thing itself was really like, I mean, that's the most boring thing you can do, like magnetically erasing hard drives. Come on, yeah? But the good part is that people somehow start to discuss about what's happening. And then you talk about information and information overload and what happens to society and what happens to books and should there be. And then there was this big discussion about electronic books. Oh no. Yeah. But somehow it's nice to trigger discussions like that. I think that's one of the main reasons we at Monochrome do our projects. Because some of the things are really like funny, somehow crazy, but most of them have a somehow like political backgrounds, and it's good to implement a couple of routines into the minds of people. Let's call it that way. There's a good quote by Mao Zedong, who basically said that in America they have this really wonderful concept of sugar-coated bullets. So, for example, there's Mickey Mouse, and Mickey Mouse is a clear way of, let's call it, American cultural imperialism, something like that, but nobody would see it as imperialism because everybody loves Mickey Mouse. It's nice, it's fine, it's a cartoon, whatever, yeah? And that's what Mao Zedong calls sugar-coated bullets, because they're bullets nonetheless, but they're sugar-coated. And I think like it's fine to have concepts, like clear political or theoretical or philosophical concepts, and do a little bit of icing on top of it, and then let's see how it works. I mean, it's very sad. I mean, if, let's say, the best books of Foucault, for example, would be videos on YouTube, I'm not sure how many people would view them. They're long, they're complicated, but you have to provide the people a kind of entry forum, let's call it. I mean, many people who were discussing with us and saw projects we did somehow started to dig a little bit deeper, and that's the only thing we can do. I mean, we can. I mean, it's part of postmodernism. We are all children of postmodernism, and I don't know if we can escape that or not. But I think it's a good way to stimulate. We don't know what we can stimulate, but it's at least good to stimulate. More questions?